Andy, it's the beginning of the video and your painting is already done. It's like we time traveled or something.
Well, just get set for a crap ton of time travel today on Art Talk.
I should have stayed home today.
No. You're coming along with me because we are going to bounce back between current day here in the Atlanta area and London in the not in the 1930s, but the 1830s. We're
Even further.
even further back.
Oh man. All right. Well, we're going to do that and we're going to paint some landscapes too, right?
Absolutely.
Great.
We're going to start out by putting some paint out on our palette, and we are going to start with titanium white. Today we're not doing a traditional blue sky. We're going to do a sky that is a couple of shades of pink and maybe a little bit of purple, because skies are not always blue.
Sounds poetic, Andy.
What, the skies are not always blue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the storm clouds gather, but today we're going to do a very, very soft, very, very pale landscape that's completely abstracted. So we don't want to have, we're not putting any detail at all into this particular landscape. So I'm going to make a couple of different pink colors, and best practices dictate that when I've picked up paint on my palette knife, I'm going to clean my palette knife before I go into another color, because I don't want to contaminate my red with white. Just like, you know, getting chocolate in your peanut butter, or is it peanut butter in your chocolate? I can't remember what you're not supposed to get where, but we don't want to do any cross-contamination. This is a very light pink made from titanium white and apple red, and we're going to make a different shade of pink with titanium white and a little bit of true burgundy. These two different reds are going to give us different kinds of pink, and we need different variety in our sky, so we're creating a couple of different pink colors to start out with.
Did you choose your shirt today because you knew we were painting pink skies?
That's exactly what I did.
Oh my gosh.
Just like to coordinate things. All right, so adding a little bit more true burgundy so that we get a deeper shade of pink. Okay, so we've got two different shades of pink here, and that's enough. No, let's make one other color. I'm going to put a little bit of aqua and a little bit of dioxazine purple out on my palette. So just getting all sorts of colors. It's Prussian blue, not dioxazine purple, but we'll make that work for right now.
Freestyling. Improv.
Yeah, I had asked Stephen earlier if he had done any improv classes, and he was very quick to tell me that he had not.
No, Andy, I said yes, and?
You were an ace at it? All right, so I've added a little Prussian blue to some aqua. We're just changing the colors up a little bit. And this is, we have 17 colors in the Art Talk set, and we can make an infinite number of colors from those. And we're going to lighten this up with some titanium white just off to the side here. So you never have to use anything that comes straight out of the bottle. We can always augment things to make them suit our purposes. So this is just giving me a different shade of blue that I might work into my sky a little bit. And we're going to do the sky, and we're going to do it kind of quickly because it's pretty simple, but we want to make it beautiful. So let me tell you what I have here. I call this my handheld easel, and it's just a little piece of wood, and I made some loops of tape, and I've taped my canvas onto this piece of wood so that I can hold the wood, paint on the canvas, and not get my hands covered in paint because, well, let's just face it, I hate that. All right, before we get started, I want to divide my canvas, not in half, but I want to divide it a little bit, and I'm going to make just a little bit of a diagonal line here going from the lower left to the upper right. And this is giving me my sky and my foreground. So it doesn't take much to do that, but we are supplying you with the line drawing of this. so you can transfer it exactly where I have it on my little canvas. So I'm using a number 1, that's not a number 1, can't read, it's a 1-inch flat brush, and I'm going to pick up some of my light pink color, and we're going to brush this on, and we're going to carry some of that right down to our horizon line. Then I'm going to take this darker pink color, didn't clean my brush or anything, and we're going to add this in starting at the horizon line, and we're blending that up into the lighter pink. I'm going to wipe my brush and just kind of blend these colors together a little bit. We have our sky, and I've blended that, and that's all I need to do. Just want to merge those colors together, and I'm going to take some of this lighter blue that I have, and I'm going to just brush a little bit of that in, and using the 2 different corners of my brush, I am going to touch one corner down and pull, and then alternate with the other corner. So as I'm blending this together, I'm softening the color and creating very soft brush marks. Whew, that was exhausting getting this much of the sky in.
I'm wiped over here just watching you do that, man.
I know, it's so tough. All right, so I want to add some little fluffy clouds into our sky. And a lot of people just kind of freak out when they start to add some clouds to their paintings. But I'm picking up a little bit of titanium white on my brush, and not a ton of it, just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start low, and I'm going to move high. Low in relation to my horizon line. All right, so I'm going to start here, and I'm thinking this might be a little bit better tilted up like that. We're going to start low, and I'm just pushing the paint up. And if you don't have too much paint on your brush, this is going to be pretty easy. Just start and push up. That is going to give you a lovely kind of loose top to your clouds, and then you can just blend a tiny amount. And I'm going to take a quick look at that, and I think that is an absolutely lovely sky. So we're going to hit our pause button here. We're going to dry our sky, and then we are going to climb into the time machine. Picture it, London, Royal Academy of Arts. This is where our real story begins, but we can't just jump into 1831. We need to go back in time a little bit and introduce you to our main players. So we have on one hand, Joseph Mylord William Turner. We'll just call him Turner from here.
Is that like William Turner from Pirates of the Caribbean?
It is not.
Okay.
But you have William Turner, who is basically a child art prodigy. Starts very young, drawing, selling his work. He is good, and there is absolutely no question about it. So he is our antagonist. I think that's the right word for it. And the protagonist is a gentleman named John Constable. Constable was born of a pretty wealthy farming agricultural family, and it took him a long time to realize that he wanted to be an artist. And he was good, but not good to the level of Turner. You have a child prodigy who enters the Royal Academy of Arts, finishes all of his coursework in 3 years. So he is in, out, done, and is on to his successful art career. Constable, on the other hand, took him more than 11 years to get through his coursework. So you have the tortoise and the hare. Very different artists, very different painters. So Stephen, through the magic of his brilliant editing, is going to show you 2 of their paintings. So we're going to see the most famous painting of John Constable, which is called The Hay Wain. And it is a bucolic scene of the English countryside, very realistic, very pastoral, very idealized.
Stuffy.
Stuffy, okay. So that's a nice
It looks like if I was in that scene, I would be stuffy and I would sneeze a lot.
Yes. And then we have Turner's most famous painting, Rain, Steam, Speed. You have to kind of look a little bit to realize that that is a painting of a locomotive. Wildly different styles of painting. Constable's is very, very buttoned up. Turner's is much more impressionistic and stylized. So different folks, different ways of painting, different ideas about landscape painting. But they are both part of the Royal Academy's way of going about art. They used to do these things called a salon. And the salon exhibitions were the way to be seen if you're an artist. So in London in 1831, now that's where we are in our time machine, they're getting ready to hang all of the paintings for this very, very important exhibition. And John Constable is crowing like a rooster because he is on the hanging committee. And they decide where all the paintings are going to be hung. So there are about 1,000 paintings that are going to be on display. And because Constable pretty much does not like Turner, Constable hangs Turner's painting off in a side room where it's not really going to be noticed that much and puts his in a really, really prime location. So Turner notices this and calls him out on it. And Constable says, "Oh, yours is in a perfect location." And then Turner says, "If it's so perfect, why isn't your painting hanging there?" So public arguing, and nobody really likes that, but that we've set the scene for this rivalry. But while we're getting ready to get into the meat of our feud, we're going to paint a little bit more on this.
Let's time machine back.
Okay, now know exactly where we are thanks to Stephen's sound effects. So I'm just going to paint the edges of the canvas with some of the light pink. And sorry about this camera angle. I just need to see what I'm doing for a second. All right, so we're just getting some of this light pink on. And this is the way to finish out your canvas so you don't have any undesirable white canvas showing at the edge. All right, so there we've painted the edges of our canvas, and we're going to get some more paint out because we need to start painting our meadow or our foreground. So I'm going to put out some lime green, a little thicket. We'll put out some lemon yellow, and I think that's going to be enough to get us started, but we're going to create some paint mixtures. So I want some very light, bright green color, so I'm going to start with some lime green and some lemon yellow. We'll mix those together to make a very pale, yellowy green color.
Are you getting flashbacks from the green episode with this?
Green, straight out of the bottle, bunch of different green colors. Nah, not so much. I mean, I mix colors all the time, so it's, I do remember the green episode.
Well, I just watching you do that gave me some sort of like flashback,
You're
some
like,
sort of.
I've seen this before. He's mixed a green color before.
I felt like I was back in the time machine, but just going to like a month ago.
We're gonna soon be giving that time machine a run for its money.
I gotta check the mileage on that thing.
It's probably due for an oil change.
Yep.
All right, so now I'm gonna add white to a portion of this to make this an even lighter tint. And since we're art talking, let's talk about tints. A tint is a color that has been altered by the addition of white. So here's my green color. This is a tint of that because I altered it with white. You've heard the expressions a tint, a tone, or a shade of a color. And so this is what a tint is. A tone would be if I took this green and altered it, say, with a different green or maybe a complementary color like red, that would make a tone of it. If I added black to this, that would make a shade of green. So tint, tone, shade, important art terms to learn or paint vocabulary to learn. All right, so let's take some of our light green color here and let's make a tone of that by adding a little bit of thicket to that. Again, just changing the color green a little bit. And I know you all are enjoying me mixing paint, but you're on the edge of your seat wondering what is going to happen between Turner and Constable. And we'll have more of that in just a minute. All right, so we've got a nice darker shade of green here, or tone of green. All right.
Careful.
I know, got to keep the words right. Let's do this with our number 1 flat brush. So I'm going to take some of that lighter green color and we are going to just scrub in our foreground. And then I'll take a little bit of that.
Andy, this painting is looking very much like your outfit today. You guys can't see it, but Andy has green pants on What are we doing here, Andy? Is this a portrait or is this a landscape?
This, trust me, this is going to be a landscape. All right, so we are scrubbing this darker green color across our foreground, and we've merged our medium green with our lighter green. And let's add a little bit of aqua to this. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off because I don't want to spread that aqua color all the way across.
Oh my gosh, I realized who it is. It's Patrick Star from SpongeBob. I'll throw up a graphic, you'll see it.
Okay. And of course, we are not painting Bikini Bottom here, but that's where...
That's for another episode.
That's where Patrick lives. All right, so I'm taking some of this really light blue color that we made earlier, and I'm going to add some of that into my landscape, into the foreground here. And I'm doing this with some little vertical strokes, just to create a little bit of texture in our foreground. Wiping off my brush, and I'm going to come back, well, we're going to shake it up here a little bit. I'm going to get a palette knife out here, and I'm going to take some of this very, very light pale green color and tap and dab this on my palette. I don't want too much paint on the brush, but I want a little bit. And we're going to start up at the top of our foreground. Get a little bit more on my palette knife, and we're going to flick this down. And I'm wondering, Stephen, if you're thinking, maybe this is where you should have started instead of with the sunflowers.
No, I think the sunflower was actually a perfect starting place for me. I don't think I could have done much more than that. You don't know this, Andy, but after that episode, I slept for 3 days. I was lethargic.
Oh, no.
I was completely drained.
So sorry I did that to you.
Sorry, I do it for the internet, for the fans.
Okay, so we've added some light green to our little foreground area. So we've got some darker tones, some mid values, some lighter tones. Same thing with our sky, darker tones, mid values, lighter. So we're creating some interest here. I'd like to take a minute to thank Plaid Enterprises for sponsoring Art Talk. They are the makers of folk art acrylics, which I absolutely love using. I've used this paint since I was a young tot, and now that I'm an old fart, I still use this paint. We have a 17-piece set that we've curated just for you. Ordering information is in the description below, and we also have great brushes for you. We have a 7-piece set of Folk Art Select Firm Bristle brushes. These are absolutely incredible. I use them every time I paint. And I've never done that in my entire life. Now, let's get back to our video. We're back, and not only are we back here in the Art Talk set, we are back here in the 1830s. 1832. We're a year past Constable hanging Turner's painting in a bad area of the exhibition. 1832, Turner is on the hanging committee. But he doesn't just want to hang Constable's painting in a bad location. He decides to one-up the competition. So he hangs his painting right next to Constable's painting. So Constable's painting is the opening of the Waterloo Bridge. The painting is about 7 feet long, and Stephen, how long do you think he'd been working on that? For about how many years?
I think it was somewhere between like 7 and like 15, maybe? I don't know why those are the two numbers that popped up, but it was a long time.
Long time he had been belaboring this artwork. And so we all know that if you paint on a painting for too long, it stops being lively and just starts to be overwrought. So Turner's painting was City of Utrecht going to sea. So it's a seascape of some boats on the water, kind of not dramatic in color, some blues, some browns, some very subtle colors. And at this time, the artists, they would hang their paintings, and then they would have a few weeks to come back and they could touch things up or varnish the painting or do whatever they needed to do. So Constable is in there constantly fussing with that painting that it has been fussed over for years. So adding some little red flags here and some other little touches of red here and there, trying to make his painting look a little bit better. And he is just thinking Turner's painting is the most boring thing ever. So here it comes. Turner comes in to the gallery where Constable is there messing with his tedious painting, and he has on his palette what we'll consider some red. And he takes his palette and picks up some red paint on his thumb and makes a little smear on his painting and leaves. Constable and everybody else who's in there is just guffawing that he has ruined his painting. Why would anybody do this, and blah, blah, blah. So the next day, everybody's back to gawk at Turner's painting, and Constable's still messing with his, and Turner comes into the room, has a rag, and he goes up to his painting and he cuts off part of that red blob and scratches at it with his fingernail. And he's turned the red blob into a buoy bobbing in the water. Everybody is amazed because it has transformed his painting. And Constable looks at it and realizes that he has been out. I mean, the showmanship is beyond expectation, and he exclaims, according to reports at that time, he has been here and fired a gun, meaning that, he has just shot me dead. And so from that moment on, those two guys literally hated each other's guts. And it makes for a great story, but it also lets you know that art history is not drab, dull, and boring. And the feud between Turner and Constable was one of the great art feuds of all time.
Whoa, we're back in the present.
We are back in the present.
2023 again. Man, it was really, really dusty over there.
And I'm telling you, it's kind of interesting that, there are all sorts of feuds, real and imagined, and that happens to be one of the coolest little stories. All right, so I've taken some of my medium shade of green here and a little thicket on a number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to turn my canvas upside down, and we are going to lay in some little trees in our landscape. And I'm doing this way so that if we can get a super close up on this, you can see kind of how we have a little bit ragged top going on there. And I'm just tapping the brush down, and we're getting just a little cool effect there. And I'm not doing anything super hard, nothing special, just taking my brush and laying it flat down. And I'm going to tap some more and just create kind of an interesting little shape there, a little line, and then we're going to turn this back around. And now we're looking at our painting right side up, and we're going to take a little bit more thicket, and I'm going to use just the corner of the number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to tap right along the horizon line, creating a little bit of darkness there and letting it kind of creep up into the little foliage we established earlier. And once I start to get most of the paint off of my brush, I'm going to tap that up a little higher. And I want to make sure that I'm getting a pretty cool looking tree line going here, because you don't want your trees to look like somebody has taken some very strange hedge clippers to it and done a really bad haircut. And I'm not one to speak of bad haircuts because I haven't had a haircut in, I don't know, we'll say 20 some years. But we're not really worrying too much about any particular kind of trees. We are just giving this painting a little bit of a focal point, and I'm going to put a little bit of black here on my palette. And you got to be careful when you're using black in a landscape painting, because if you don't use it kind of cautiously or in a kind of a toned down way, it'll knock a hole in the painting. So I'm going to take some thicket and I'm going to add about a freckle's worth of black to that.
Frecklesworth sounds like the last name of somebody in the 1830s where we just were.
I'm sure Sir Frecklesworth is a character somewhere.
Yeah, he was a member of the court, no doubt.
No doubt. All right, so we are going to take this super dark green and we are going to add some of that along the base of our tree line. And we're not doing it everywhere, just a little bit here and there. And you can see that that adds a lot of depth right along there. And I'm loving how we're getting some of these little tiny bits of color coming down into the foreground area. And I'm going to take some of my turquoise Prussian blue mix and I'm going to tap some of that on. That's giving us a little bit of light, or you might even think of it as a bit of sky color, even though our sky is predominantly pink. I'm going to take some of that really light color that we added here in the sky, and I'm going to tap a little bit of that on. I'm using the corner of the brush. All right, so we've got our trees put in there. I'm exhausted after all of that fighting.
I mean,
that's
I thought I was tired before, but
you know, a good 1830s art brawl.
Do you taste metal after going through the time machine, or is that just me?
That's just you. I'm more worried about turning into the fly.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so we've got some sky, we've got some foreground, we've got some trees, but we need to add a little bit more interest in our painting. So I'm going to take my number 12 flat brush, rinse it out, and I'm going to make a little puddle of water here on my palette, and I'm going to take some of our Thicket and our Frecklesworth of black. Yes, we are bringing Sir Frecklesworth back. All right, so we just want this super dark green color. That's probably a little too dark, so I'm going to add some more Thicket to that, and I'm going to make this pretty thin. All right, so I've got my paint thinned out, and I'm going to take some of that excess moisture out of the brush, and we're going to just pull down from our stand of trees there. We're not actually mimicking the exact shape, but we're kind of following along. I'm going to bring that further down because that's a taller stand of trees there. All right, so we're going to give this a minute to dry because I don't want to disturb that. So we're going to take a momentary break and we'll be right back. Our thinned dark green wash that we've put on there has dried, and we just didn't want to mess with that. So now I'm going to do the same thing, create a little puddle of water here on my palette, and I'm going to take some of my original blue that I made from aqua and Prussian blue, and we're going to thin that out. So I've got it really nice and thin, but there's so much water here, I don't really want that. So I'm going to blot on a paper towel, and now I've got thinned paint, but not so much on my brush. I'm going to come back to our little landscape, and we are going to add some of this blue color like next to our dark green. And I think we're going to let this dry, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to let that dry, and we're going to do it a second time to really intensify that blue. And we're back again, and our canvas is dry, so we're going to take some of our transparent blue that we thinned down to a nice wash. We're going to blot our brush off, and we're simply going to go over that blue layer that we put on, and this is intensifying that and really kind of strengthening that blue. So this is our little landscape that we were able to create amongst all the chaos of the 1830s.
I know we traveled back in time twice. We went to the 1830s.
To the Salon Academy.
Yeah, I have a headache now from all that.
All that time travel. Yeah, we need to rehydrate.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Art Talk, and I know that both Stephen and I are exhausted from all of our time travel.
I think I need to go to urgent care or something. I feel like I'm about to throw up the way that time machine was spinning.
We would like for you to subscribe to the Plaid Crafts YouTube channel and like us. If you would like, you can leave a comment below. You have links for the downloadable pattern, the paint kit, as well as the brush set in the description box below. If you'd like to leave a compliment, you can do that by emailing me at art_talk@plaidonline.com. So Thanks for joining us on this episode of Art Talk, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.